Hi, Aquarius Sun and Rising. Welcome to your December 2021 Astro Update. It's Raina here. So, this is the last month of the year, and we have a solar eclipse in Sagittarius to cap things off, the last in its series with Gemini. On the first of the month, Neptune goes direct in Pisces, the sign that it rules. Neptune has been in Pisces for almost a dozen years, and Pisces is your second house of earned income. I must say, before I go any further, that this is a general forecast, and the exact dates that I'm giving you are not going to be valid for some of you depending on your chart, but they give you a general idea of things. So with Neptune in the second house, and this has been ongoing, but Neptune has been retrograde for several months, actually probably since June. When Neptune goes retrograde, it makes a person more realistic, but to the point of disillusionment even. It can be like having an illusion stripped from you so that you are forced to deal with something. So in the house of earned income, this can be about your finances. Starting in June up until December, there may have been something that you had to face about your finances. Neptune, even we talk about Neptune being direct in the second house, can have different effects at the same time. It can make you more confused, disorganized, delusional about your finances. So, in other words, you may just not really pay attention to them. Neptune doesn't have many boundaries, so that can leave you more likely to give away money to other people. Also has altruistic influence, so you're more likely to give money away to others, and that can be a great thing if you're giving it to people that are being honest about what they're going to spend it on. And so, in other words, sometimes this can leave somebody open to being taken advantage of. Now, for some Aquarius sun people, you may have Capricorn inner planets, and all of you can have the moon in Capricorn. And the reason I'm being specific about Capricorn, with the sun sign, that is the earth sign that's adjacent to you. But it's also just a sign for everybody that is connected to being very disciplined about resources. The motto of Capricorn is, I conserve. And if you know any Capricorns, you know that they tend to be very frugal and very resourceful, and they make do with what they have, and they don't throw things away. They don't like waste. That's a Saturn influence. Oh, well, Aquarius is co-ruled by Saturn. So maybe some of you are like that anyway without any Capricorn influence. But the point is that the point that I was trying to make is that Neptune can loosen some of those rigid boundaries that Saturn may have here if you have inner planets in in Capricorn. And that can make you much more generous. There's that saying, generous to a fault. And when people use that phrase, a lot of times they're saying it in the context of the person is giving away money and they're not being very discerning about it. But like I said, I think there's a good side to that. Also, you might be earning your living through something that is spiritually based or even artistic with Neptune too. And when Neptune went retrograde, you might have been reconsidering that. Is this the right thing to do? So things are getting settled in that department. On the 4th, there is a solar eclipse that I was talking about earlier at 12 degrees of Sagittarius. For Aquarius, this is your 11th house. This is the house that you rule. So that's special too. Solar eclipse here, this is like your solar return in a sense. And this is the house of hopes and wishes. So maybe some of them will get activated. A solar eclipse is a powerful new moon, so it's more potent, And on top of that, there's the connection with the 11th house of gains. In other words, what you have profited from in terms of your career. And a solar eclipse here can plant seeds for future gains. This is also the house of friendship, so you may find that you're expanding your social network in some way. What can come up for you, and these areas can change too, because eclipses are all about change. But what could come up for you is your social life and your connections. And for some Aquarians, there may be issues connected to this that are not necessarily satisfactory. You might feel as if the friends that you have, maybe they are not supportive of you or really like you feel this sense of an affinity with them anymore. Maybe you feel like you don't have things in common with them, and that's okay if that is your truth. I mean, we go through different seasons in life, and some people follow us through all the seasons and some don't. That's just how it is. On the 13th, we have 2 transits to talk about. One of them is Mars going into Sagittarius. And that's that house again. On the same day, Mercury goes into your 12th house in Capricorn. With the Mars in Sagittarius, that could be some kind of sparring, conflict. If something happened with the solar eclipse that brought to light something with somebody that claimed to be your friend, you may confront that person. You might be kind of aggressive with that person and say, I know what you are doing, and not pull any punches. Mars doesn't have to be conflict. It can simply be activity, a lot of emphasis put on this area of life, like a lot of energy poured into this. You might be networking in a very aggressive way, perhaps for some career goals of yours, and you're just kind of going for it. On the same day with Mercury in the 12th house, this is more contemplative types of thoughts. And you're an air sign, so thinking is, like breathing to you. You really like to do it. But in the 12th house, you can find that your thoughts are not your friend. And that can actually be a great time to kind of look at the thoughts that you're thinking. I mean, it could be a great time for meditation, for sure. But in general, looking at what kind of self-defeating patterns do I have in my life? Because that's what the 12th house can represent. And how does my mind get me in trouble in this regard? I was spending a lot of time, tonight before I recorded this, making dinner, washing dishes, the usual. And I was listening to Eckhart Tolle while I was doing it. It's a great way to take in spiritual teachings while you're doing something practical. And, it always strikes me how much of his discourses are about the mind almost as our enemy, and how the mind causes people to suffer because they have false identification. And so with Aquarius, I'm trying to think of like how this could really be talked about in a general sort of way. Well, I would say any air sign is going to be conceptual. Things are going to be symbolic or kind of like filed in your mind in certain categories. And this is kind of what the scientist does. Or anybody who is trying to get a handle on the truth about something, they have to label things. But that was one of the things that Eckhart Tolle talked about. I can't remember the details, but saying as soon as you label something, you have limited it. And think about that, because it's true. So, and this is kind of what people do who are like in academia, trying so hard to wrap their brains around things. But there's a higher component always at play, and it's the intuition. It's not just the mind. And that's talking about mundane knowledge, nothing to say about wisdom. And so anyway, I kind of went off on a tangent, but I just wanted to give you some ideas of how you can approach this, because I think this is happening in my solar chart. I'm a sun in Sagittarius, of having Mercury in the 12th house, because I think Mercury is in Scorpio as I record this. And that kind of thing, or even in Sag, I have it in my 12th house for a certain degree. I think about that sometimes, like how it affects us emotionally, because we're talking about the mind, and there is a body-mind, connection there. And people do suffer when they are thinking thoughts that have a negative tinge to them. So we have to definitely look at what we're doing, but we can't take it to the other extreme and try to stop thought, because that's, not going to work either. So just kind of like looking at this in terms of how it can negatively impact you. And the 12th house is addictions, and sometimes people have an addiction to their thoughts, an addiction to their mind. On the 18th, there's a full moon at 27 degrees of Gemini, and this is a fellow air sign. It's the air sign in front of you, and so this is going to fall in the 5th house of romance and creativity. A full moon here can give you a wonderful idea for a creative project. It can spark a romantic affair, or even a relationship, even though this is not the house of relationships. This is the house of love, and you may have love coming into your life, and it has dawned on you that somebody is your soulmate, or somebody that, or, a love interest in some way. You did have a solar eclipse here back in June. So this may be the bookend of that, the other half of that. And I should add that this is not an eclipse, this is just a full moon. But in terms of looking at these two moons, new and full, in 2021 and in the same house, and how do they have any connection with one another? Sometimes this can be the end of an affair, or the end of some kind of like infatuation with somebody. And it can also be the end of pining away for someone. So the fifth house is love itself. And sometimes even when people break up, they still have this sense of, an energetic connection with that person, even if it's a one-sided connection. And this can be the final letting go. On the 19th, Venus goes retrograde at 26 degrees of Capricorn. And of course, that is your 12th house. And Venus retrograding in the 12th house, how interesting is that? Definitely look at soulmates. Venus will be here for the next several months. This, for anybody who has, for anybody, forget about who has a chart. Everybody, has a chart if they pull one up. For all of us, Venus retrograde can be an X coming into the picture again. Now, it just so happens that this is your 12th house, Aquarius. So the thing to be careful about is this person a soulmate or just a karmic relationship? Now, of course, you could say soulmates are karmic relationships. Twin flames, they are, they can be. But the point is, it doesn't really matter about that, how you label something, but is it good? Is it something that adds benefit to you, or are there more sad times than good times? I also think this can be receiving money from, like, this could be good karma money, like you did something, maybe this was something you did to benefit somebody else, and now they're paying you back. They're like saying, you lent me money 12 years ago when I didn't have any, and you never judged me, you never asked me what I was going to use it for, and I became very successful, and I want to show you my gratitude, or something like that. This can be like looking at your values as it relates to your spirituality. Again, Aquarius is one of those strange signs where you are very intuitive, but some of you may be atheists. You may be so in love with your intellect that it's hard for you to believe in God. You think it's primitive. You think it is anti-intellectual. And I would say, yeah, it is anti-intellectual. You say that like it's a bad thing. But, obviously if somebody's into astrology, chances are they have some kind of spiritual belief system, I think. Because I think a lot of atheists mock astrology too. So probably not the people listening to this are going to be full-blown atheists. But you still might have some real skeptical parts to you that find it hard to embrace certain concepts. And that's okay, because some people are too willing to believe anything. And you don't want that either. Maybe a happy medium. But really challenging yourself and being very into self-reflection, because this is the house of contemplation, and a retrograde of an inner planet can really favor and also just create the circumstances to be like reviewing your situation. On the 21st, the sun goes into Capricorn. We call that the solstice. In a cardinal sign, we call that a solstice or an equinox. In this case, it's a solstice. I live in the northern hemisphere. It's the winter solstice. And so that is in the 12th house. And it's supposed to be a very powerful time. And I mean, this is any change of the seasons is going to be like that. But this 12/21, there's those numbers again, just like in 2012. So enjoy that in your 12th house, Aquarius. What a great place for it, in the most mystical house, or one of the most mystical houses. On the 28th, Jupiter goes into Pisces, and Pisces is a ruler of the 12th house. In your particular chart, Pisces is your second house. So in that house that Neptune is in, both of these planets favor some kind of religious or spiritual job that you're getting paid for. Well, obviously, jobs are usually paying positions, right? So Jupiter went briefly into Pisces earlier in 2021. Now it's back for more. And that certainly is great in your second house of earned income, because Jupiter can expand this area, give you more opportunities, make you more optimistic about your own potential for wealth. And that is a lot of the challenge, is to be optimistic, not to be pessimistic. So this could have a very good effect financially for you until next summer or fall if you're down under. Not fall, winter. Okay, well, that's what I have for you, Aquarius. I hope that this resonated. If you would like a private reading, the link is below. Take care. Bye.